We've got the best reveals from Gamescom. We hear from the director of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and I've got my review of the movie. And I've also got reviews of the third episode of Marvel's What If and the brand new horror movie Candyman. All that and the latest and everything cool today in the Rundown. Hey, welcome to the Rundown. My name is Victor Lucas, and I'm so glad you found me in the electric playground. Today's episode is brought to you by Pinnacle, which is back and headed to the Vancouver Convention Center. It's hosted by the Gaming Stadium, along with partners Even Matchup Gaming, Gallant Gaming, and Vancouver Street Battle. They're bringing you 3 days of non-stop gaming action. Pinnacle runs from Friday, October 8th to Sunday, October 10th, and features a $30,000 prize pool featuring some of the top competitive games out there, like Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Street Fighter, and Guilty Gear. You can register today to compete or to spectate at tgs.gg/pinnacle. All right, today's episode is dedicated to Theodore Lorenzo, who said a Halo game releasing without multiplayer shows how every company is rushing out half-finished games. Hopefully fans wait until the game is complete before they buy it. It certainly is a very different industry than it was when the original Halo launched, isn't it? I think that there are a lot of mixed feelings about this. Games are always online. Games are live. There are seasons attached to video games. And the other thing that I think we always have to kind of keep in consideration, especially with regards to AAA, is that they're so big. They're just so big in terms of manpower and size within the game. It's definitely different days. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what Halo Infinite is doing. They're going to be releasing co-op and then the Forge mode later after they release the single-player campaign. But at least what's interesting here is multiplayer is going to be free to play. All right, let's get into that topic a little bit with our discussion about Gamescom. Yesterday, we got a 2-hour show talking about games that are headed our way very soon as part of Gamescom's opening night live, hosted and produced by my buddy Jeff Keighley, who did a great job bringing in all kinds of different takes and tastes around video games. There was literally something in there for everybody, but I've got 5 favorites that I've seen so far from the reveals coming out of Gamescom. I'm going to start with number 5, and that is Dokev, or Dokev, or Dokev. I don't know how it's pronounced. I don't know what's going on in this game, but it's so colorful, it's so beautiful, and it looks super contemporary and super current with the technology. It was an impressive demo. It looks insane. I know that there's going to be some, creature collecting, and then there's all of these little extra abilities driving around and floating with an umbrella, and there's rocket-propelled skateboards. The animations look great. The characters look super cute. I'm in for this insane ride. Number 4 for me is the release date of Halo Infinite, which was a pretty big get as part of the opening night live ceremonies, because now we know finally when we're going to be able to play the campaign and jump into the free-to-play multiplayer, which I thought was pretty amusing actually on the live stream yesterday. People were still hearing that for the first time. Yes, Halo multiplayer is free to play, which is crazy. The campaign is part of Game Pass. If you're a Game Pass subscriber, you'll be able to play it on the PC and on the Xbox platforms on December 8th. And as part of the reveal, they also showed off a, I'm sure already sold out Collector's Edition Xbox Series X, which looks fantastic. And then a couple of different Halo-themed controllers, one of them for the Super Duper Elite 2 controller and one of the regular Xbox Series controllers, all fancied up in Halo colors, and they also look incredible. So a very good showing for Halo Infinite over the last couple days as part of Gamescom. Number 3, we finally got a release date on Sifu, which is one of several brawlers that's headed our way very soon. And this game looks to be just sensational. It's a 3D take on some of the corridor-based and interior-based brawls that we see in a lot of martial arts movies. It just looks fluid and super fun and accessible. And there's also this kind of mystical element in there with regards to failing and then aging. And I guess that makes it a little bit harder. I don't know. It looks like an incredible fusion of like roguelike elements and brawling elements. And it's so artfully presented. I can't wait for this game. They're saying February 22nd, 2022, but I have a feeling that this is a game that they're going to get right before they give it to us. Can't wait for Sifu. I also cannot wait for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. You guys knew that this would be on my list. Tribute Games is making a love letter to the 16-bit glory days of the Turtles. It looks super fun. What they revealed in this trailer is that April O'Neil is going to be one of the playable fighters. She's got a little microphone and she can whack the bad guys with. It just looks tight, and again, this is a game that they didn't tell us the release date, so I think Tribute and .emu, the publisher, everybody knows the pressure on this team to deliver something that is going to be definitive in this space, just like .emu did with Streets of Rage 4, which I am still obsessively playing. Cannot believe that we get these modern brawlers that's harken back to a lot of the 16-bit superhero stuff that I do. It's so much fun. And speaking of superheroes, I think the thing that excited me the most out of the reveals was something that was teased to possibly appear at E3, but it didn't. But here it is at Gamescom. It's the new Firaxis Midnight Suns Marvel game, which brings together characters like Wolverine and Ghost Rider and Blade. It's got a metaphysical kind of spooky tone to it, a quality to it. You're going to be fighting demons and things like that. But it's a turn-based role-playing strategy experience, the kind of game that Firaxis is just known for and incredible at building for us. So yes, it's a Marvel XCOM-alike. We didn't get gameplay. We just got a trailer that gives us a sense of what we're about to experience, and in September, so next week basically, we're going to get a look at what the gameplay is like, and I suspect it's going to be phenomenal. One thing that's very clear about Marvel's integration or reintegration into video games, thanks to the MCU and all of the work that Kevin Feige has been putting into the movies and the television shows, the esteem around Marvel properties is palpable, and I don't think anybody's going to drop the ball. Everybody's working really hard to kind of hit that quality bar. And, I think as fans of Firaxis and turn-based strategy experiences, we can't expect anything but greatness out of this Midnight Suns experience. I hope it lives up to that. Can't wait. And speaking of Marvel, I recently got a chance to catch up with the director of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I had a chance to watch Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and I'm going to review that for you here in a second. But the other thing that I was able to do was actually connect with the director of the movie, Destin Daniel Cretton, and I got to ask him some questions about what it was like to make this for us. How are you feeling right now, Destin? People have been waiting for this movie for a long time.
Well, I'm one of those people who have been waiting for this movie to come out for a long time, so I feel very, very excited to be at this point.
What I love about this movie, and it's true about a lot of Marvel movies, I would have been happy with just a film about Sean and Katie as valets. You made a great piece just out of that. I thought that was super fun.
Oh, well, I would watch that movie too. That is what I think. Whether we know it or not, I think that is the reason we continue to fall in love with these characters in these giant Marvel action-packed movies, is because they care equally about the relationships and humanizing these characters in a way that makes them feel very relatable.
Did you study a lot of martial arts work to kind of get a feel for where the camera should be positioned? Because one of the things that's clear with this movie is the verticality and the way that the camera has to move with superhuman abilities in mind. It's breathtaking as a viewer. You're just like, oh my God, where am I going next? It's incredible.
I'm glad you feel that way. The smartest thing that we did was hire amazing people who have a very rich history in this type of filmmaking. And Brad Allen, the head of our action design team, was trained in Jackie Chan's camp. And with our first meeting with him, I could just see very clearly that he had an ingrained respect for all of the movies that came before us in the martial arts and kung fu genre, and he wanted to pay proper respect to those movies. He also was trained in a way that was not just punching and kicking and explosions. In the camp of Jackie Chan, they are trained storytellers first, and
right.
That's how his brain was always thinking when trying to create these sequences. What are the setups? What are the payoffs? What are the characters doing in the sequence? Where do we want them to be at the end of the sequence? And in terms of the camera work, we had Bill Pope with us, who shot.
He's done a few things.
Yeah, he's done a few things. I mean, you just start with The Matrix, and it's like the guy knows how to shoot action in a way that you can actually describe as beautiful, and it was such a pleasure to learn from him.
So thank you to our friends over at Marvel and Disney for setting that up. It was super cool to be able to speak with Destin Daniel Cretton, and I'm going to be speaking with Simu Liu very soon, so watch for that right here on The Rundown. Now I'm going to review Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and I'm going to try to keep this as spoiler-free as possible. You've probably seen some of the trailers. The hype for this movie has been real, and it has been a long time. It was supposed to come out last year, and so everybody's been in this crazy waiting game to get it out there and to see it. And I didn't know anything about this character at all from the Marvel Universe. There's been a lot of updates, as far as I understand from reading about the movie and learning more about the movie. It was based on Marvel's fascination, the world's fascination, with the Kung Fu films of the 70s. This was the comic book adaptation of that, creating a superhero from that kind of a universe. And it was a successful comic series that ran for a long time, but Marvel clearly saw there was an opportunity here to tap into a different perspective and to create an Asian superhero that would honor an audience that was underserved. So that was absolutely an element in the creation of Shang-Chi as a feature film addition to the MCU, but you can really throw that away when you go to the theater and sit down in your seat and just get lost in this mythology, because Shang-Chi is an incredible addition to the Marvel pantheon of superheroes. He's definitely different. It's not like Black Panther, even though the character comes from an established history and has an important lineage and has incredible strength and power. And one thing that we learned from the film is that not all of it is a huge mystery to Shang-Chi, or Sean, as he is called in his Americanized interpretation, played by Simu Liu perfectly. There is an awareness. He knows that there was a path for him and a destiny for him, and he has these innate abilities. That's why when we see those little clips in the trailer of him fighting so well on the bus, and it's a shock to his buddy Katie, played by Awkwafina, it's not a shock to Sean. He knows he's capable. So it was really fun to kind of see the unveiling, and for Simu Liu to kind of dig into the fact that, listen, I haven't been completely honest with you. I really, really enjoyed those moments. And so we get to see that Shang-Chi has this really cool backstory and has been training, has all of these different abilities built into him. And the fight sequences are just so freaking thrilling. But I honestly felt like what was the most thrilling about this film, and it's truly an origin tale. This is about a hero becoming a hero, assuming a mantle, assuming the responsibility. But I loved the backstory. I loved the sense of family that's crafted and the sense of friendship that's crafted. I honestly could have just watched that film because the performers are so good. And even though it's set in San Francisco with a lot of familiar touchstones and elements, you know, Sean and Katie, Simu Liu and Awkwafina play valets at a hotel, and they love their jobs, you know, like they see the stress around in people's faces, and they, you know, get handed keys to expensive cars, and they see that there's a lot of people that are unhappy and even the money and the lives that they have, and they are very happy as buds. They go out for karaoke, they hang out with their other friends who are always judging them, but they are innately happy in their lives and with each other, and that is so infectious to see. And the other element that's so infectious to see in this movie is their sense of connection to the people around them, to their families, you know, when we go to their home life. And it's this mix of Chinese and English and traditional aspects of Chinese culture interwoven with the Americana that we're so familiar with in movies these days and superhero movies. It's like an embrace, you know? It's like this world that we don't see enough of, because let's be honest, we don't see enough of Asian culture in big Hollywood blockbuster films ever. And so it's new, you know, it's fresh but familiar, and it's heartwarming and it's cool. And then of course the stakes get raised and we get thrown into this adventure story, and we find out who Tony Leung really is. as the Mandarin, as the big bad in the film, and what his goals are and what his drive is. And he, in an effort to bring back his family, is driven to do some really horrible things. And Shang-Chi has to step up and ultimately come face to face with his father, who he fears and admires, but had walked away from to try to find a different life for himself. And interwoven into all that is stuff that I won't get into because it's big spoiler territory, but there's a lot of supernatural and metaphysical elements, scattered in amongst this material. Stuff that feels on its surface a little bit familiar for anybody that's watched martial arts movies in the past. And then everything gets ratcheted up Marvel style with these other elements and other cool cameos and characters that are legitimately surprising. And it's a feast for the eyes. Like, it's all wonderful and beautiful. And then you couple that with these expertly choreographed fight sequences and action sequences, and everybody is so good at what they're doing on screen. And Simu Liu actually moves with the grace and the kind of sense of comedic chops of Jackie Chan. It's an incredible thing to see, even in the sort of first glimpse of his ability on that bus fight. It's just like, wow, this guy is really electric. It's fantastic. And it's not just a fight for fight's sake. There's a lot of really cool character embellishment in the middle of all of these fights. And that escalates as Shang-Chi kind of comes into his own, and we get a sense of the full power of the character. And so we get these great character beats and heartwarming moments that feel grounded and real and fun, and you want to stay there. And we get these incredible action sequences with cool fight pieces and awesome choreography that are character infused. And then we get the super heroics and these, crazy meta creations and all of the cameos and stuff that you would expect out of a Marvel picture. And the end result is you're just overwhelmed with how freaking good this is. It is an excellent addition to the Marvel Universe. I have stopped being able to kind of pick my favorites and categorize them numerically and put them in a pecking order, because there are so many good and so many fun Marvel experiences, but this is near the top. This is an awesome, awesome movie. You don't want to miss it. Something tells me that you won't, because I'm not the only one saying this, but Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is exquisite entertainment. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Now let's shift over to Marvel on a weekly category, and this is the Marvel's What If animated series that I have been enthralled by. And this is a really cool show because it's an anthology series. Every episode is kind of a mini movie, and it mixes in all kinds of characters that we know through MCU lore. There are lots of characters in the third episode that we know from different movies, and it's a kind of a whodunit piece. It's a mystery piece. We see Avengers start dying, and it's really creepy. It's very well handled, and Nick Fury and Natasha Romanoff have to figure out who is killing the Avengers before they're the Avengers. And so we get these flashback sequences to moments just that are iconic now because of how much we know about the MCU, but they're just before we're kind of really introduced to the full might of Earth's mightiest heroes. And they die, and it's shocking, and they die in shocking ways. And the animation is really incredible because, of course, you're seeing echoes of what you saw in the live-action movies. But there's an animation embellishment where we see it's all a little bit more heightened, and the camera angles can be a little bit more esoteric and fun, but also kind of creepy, especially in the case of the Incredible Hulk in this episode. There's a shocking reveal at the end, which I won't spoil, and it's also a shocking reveal of the performer that comes back into the MCU, which was great. This was a little more straight-lined, I think, than the jumping back into the past in the 1940s with the Captain Carter episode, and in episode 2, of course, we go into a new galaxy with the new Star-Lord. This one was almost like a cop show in a way, but it's with Marvel superheroes. It was like a Law and Order episode, but I really liked it. I thought it was really cool. What I like the most about What If is I don't know what's coming next, and I like this element of surprise and mystery in every single episode, and that is absolutely exemplified here. I think out of the 3 that I've seen so far, this is my least favorite, but I still really, really liked it. I'm going to give What If Episode 3 an 8 out of 10. Now I've got a review for the brand new Candyman, which does take into account some of the stuff that was put into the 1992 version of Candyman, but it's a new film with new characters, and we are focused on an artist played by Yahya Abdul-Mateen, who plays Black Manta in Aquaman, and he was Dr. Manhattan in The Watchmen, who starts to kind of crack under the pressure of his obsession with the Candyman tale, which is about this creepy serial killer that comes to life if you look in the mirror and say Candyman 5 times. Don't do it. Don't do it. And so we start to see that he wants to create artistic stories that reinterpret this spooky ghost story, basically this spooky story. It's like an old folk tale. And so he wants to re-examine it under the lens of systemic racism and the idea of gentrification of neighborhoods and the ghettoization of neighborhoods and what that has meant to people of color and the latent fears that they all carry around with them every single day. He's trying to tap into that in some of the art that he is crafting, but in his obsession, he gets consumed with the Candyman story and starts to share it and bring it back to life, essentially, through his art. And we see some really good performances from Abdul-Mateen, but also from Teyonah Parris, who is his girlfriend, but is also an up-and-coming art curator. It's an interesting kind of take of the cynicism in the art world and some of the obsessions that come to play in the art world. We get to see critics sort of showing their true colors, but also their own ambitions and their own greed and what that kind of translates into. So there is a lot to kind of sink into with the picture that's more than it just being a slasher pick, but ultimately that's, you know, what the movie leans on. It's really well crafted. It's beautifully shot. There's some really freaky camera angles. I even love the way that the kind of city is introduced to us with all of these shots of the buildings from odd angles looking up into this incredible architecture into fog. And it just sets a great oppressive tone that exists all the way throughout the movie. It's one of those movies where you're watching it and your chest is getting a little bit tighter and tighter and you're telling people not to do stupid things. But I feel like that's a reductive thing for a film that's so artfully made and has so many interesting things to examine. I understand the importance of Candyman, you know, in the horror community and also in the black community and the fans of black culture. I totally get it. And of course, the first Candyman was a big hit. And so this movie really wants to honor all of that. And I think it does. I'm just not a big horror movie fan, you know, and as great as the direction is from Nia DaCosta, and there's some really excellent supporting work from the other actors that are in here. And the movie's produced by Jordan Peele, who directed one of my favorite horror movies ever with Get Out. This kind of just becomes like who's Candyman gonna kill now kind of thing for me. You may get more out of it. You may enjoy it more. I think the mileage may vary depending on your predilection for horror films like this, or if you happen to be a big fan of the Candyman mythology. I think I've said it 3 or 4 times. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it anymore. I mean, I certainly can appreciate this movie. I think that there's a lot of really cool artistry in the film, both on screen and behind the camera. But it's not my cup of tea. Even still, I think if you are into I almost said it again, or into horror movies, I think you're going to dig this movie quite a bit. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. All right, you guys, that's going to do it for the rundown today. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure that you check out all of the other content we've been posting recently, like that fun podcast with Sam Witwer and David Collins talking about all things Star Wars. Make sure you also check out our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/EPN. Thank you for hitting that thumbs up button and that subscribe button. And thank you, of course, to all of our EPN members. We'll see you soon. And until then, play forever.